Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Tejas Rathod. Today's topic is Azure Event Grid. So let's begin straight away. So a little bit introduction about me. I work as a cloud solution architect. I have 15 years of software industry experience. Out of that, 11 years with Microsoft. And I've worked with various sectors in terms of various cloud solution projects with financial services, healthcare, technology, and various others. I'm focused on IoT, app dev, cloud solutions, data, and AI side of the things. And my blog is azure.tejasr.com. So our today's session agenda is we are going to cover Azure service updates for a few minutes, and then we'll dive into Event Grid, and then a little bit of Q&A at the end. So let me switch my screen and discuss a few Azure service updates. So in terms of our recent this week Azure service updates, we have now Azure Backup that supports network restricted storage accounts. So if it was in your private VNet and you had to back up certain VM disks and those type of scenario, that's available now. The second one is in terms of region expansion. Global VNet peering is available in additional 4 regions, that is Europe West, US East 2, Asia Southeast, and Central US. So that is in order to peer your VNet networks between the regions. The third one is now VSTS supports additional deployments into Azure MySQL, Kubernetes Helm, and Ruby on Rails. So it's getting even more, covering many more scenarios. So all in all, the whole DevOps project and the pipeline we can integrate as part of one CI/CD integration into VSTS. Other updates in terms of Azure DNS. Now that supports matrix and alerting, so we can view the matrix on in terms of volume, DNS queries that we are receiving, the count of DNS record sets within your DNS zone, and how is overall, the percentage utilization for the max limit of record sets. There's one more update on TLS, that is now configuration of TLS versions is available in app service and functions. So if you have specific requirement to configure specific TLS version for your application and the design, you have that control as well. And some more updates in Azure Log Analytics. It now by default supports this time-generated sorted view, and a little bit of configuration and the overall UI, the reporting view in Log Analytics. And then in terms of Azure Portal, we have now a few updates into the portal experience. We have filtering available for settings and the default my subscription and the directory to work in the Azure portal. All right, I'll switch back to our presentation. So with that, Azure service updates, those were the updates for this week. And now we'll get into our today's topic, that is Azure Event Grid. So Azure Event Grid, it's recently, around January time, it went to GA, and it's an event-based computing platform in Azure. And where exactly in what scenario it fits in, we'll get into, a little bit of more details. So today what happens is we have number of different resources and the services in Azure. In order to capture the resource state from those services and take programmatic actions on them, we have to poll them, and either we do scheduled polling or continuous polling. And those events could be like, a new VM is created, a blob has been created into a storage account, a new database has been added into SQL. So all those type of events, and we might need to act and take certain actions on top of that. So we usually end up polling continuously or do a schedule based polling, and that pretty much is a resource CPU and network resource consumption. So we are consuming those additional resources to do execute those kind of scenarios. And this is where event grid fits in. Is basically all these different resource types like IoT Hub or various resources we created into Azure. They all push or send the notification events to Event Grid, and then various event handlers, they subscribe to Event Grid that, okay, these are the kind of events I want to act on. Let's say new VM is created, new database has been added to SQL. We need to act on those. And event handlers could be of any type. Either it is serverless in terms of functions, or logic apps, or webhooks, or all those types. So if we need to act on top of those events, we subscribe to those events in the event grid. And that's how it reduces the overall CPU and network consumption. We are no longer doing that continuous polling. We are mainly acting depending on the push semantics kind of scenario. So it's a push notification way. The events are pushed into Event Grid, and we have various event handlers subscribe to Event Grid, and those events are pushed to those event handlers. And based on that, we execute our logic or whatever functionality we have integrated. So this is where Event Grid plays in. Overall, Event Grid, in terms of it is a fully managed event routing platform where we have various different resources and the services types. Even we can have our own custom topics. We can push our own custom events. They all land onto Event Grid, and then there is a near real-time event delivery at scale to various event handlers. So it kind of pretty much covers range of Azure services and even beyond that, and we can deliver those events to various functionalities. So with the next generation of programming methodologies that we are experiencing now in the industry with the event-driven computing and all, Event Grid kind of becomes a central place as a platform to integrate the publishers and the subscribers on the events. And the benefit of that is we no longer have to manage that. How are we going to manage the publishing and the subscription part of the events, the delivery guarantee and the mechanism, the priority and all those scenarios? It's all taken care of by us, by Event Grid, and in terms of as a managed event routing platform. So we mainly focus on the innovation and what exactly the functionality we want to integrate, what scenarios that we want to build, and that way we focus on the overall solution, not the infrastructure components. So this also ensures the reliability and the performance for your apps, that this is how the events are guaranteed to be delivered in a real-time scenario, and we act on top of all those events mechanism. So this pretty much opens up many different scenarios, and we will discuss what all different type of scenarios could be possible with this. So there are various ways that new functionalities and overall in terms of how we want to act on when something happened with the various Azure service, or let's say we have a solution where we want to integrate various line of business applications and act on top of that. So we are managing all these events in one place here in the event grid. And this is how the scenario looks like. So on the left hand side, as you can see, we can have various event publishers. The events could be coming in from IoT Hub when the new devices are registered, blob storage, let's say new blob is created, deleted, Azure subscriptions or the resource group. Those could be like, when a new VM is created in a resource group or in a Azure subscription, notify, push that event into event grid. And then, I can have various event handlers listening, basically waiting for that event to be notified and then act on those kind of events. So left hand side is primarily all our event publishers, and they range from various different types. We also have custom topics. So in case we want to build our custom, let's say, application, we want to leverage event grid, we can have our own custom topic where we send the notifications for our own event, and then we can have event handlers subscribe to those events. So the moment we push any notification to our custom topics, the rest of the workflow continues from our event handler. So those scenarios are also pretty much possible. And the right hand side are the various event handlers. So event handlers could be of various types. And in the event grid, when we subscribe to specific event type, we basically give a webhook address. So that's what event grid calls or invokes the moment it receives a notification for a specific event. So we could have our logic implemented into Azure Functions, have orchestration or some kind of modeling done into logic apps. We could have Azure automation scripts. That is where we execute certain automation scripts. For example, let's VM is created. We want to tag that VM. We want to check the OS version of that VM, or what type of the SKU was selected for creating that VM. All those kind of various information and the logic we can execute from our event handlers from this point. So it's a pretty much web hook. So it could be any type of web hook. We just invoke that. So that way it doesn't limit the overall event grid scenario only till Azure. It could be anywhere in the internet. So this is how event subscription and event publisher and event handlers come together in event grid. What usually happens is we select a topic, and that's where whether it is Azure Storage Account, Event Hub, IoT Hub, or let's say Azure subscription or resource group events that we want to subscribe to, we'll select that topic, and then we select the event types. There is also an option to select all event types. So we select the event types, that what all types of events we want to subscribe to, and then we provide our subscriber webhook. There are also filters available. So if you want to filter the events and only receive a specific type of events, we certainly can apply those filters as well in the event grid. So pretty straightforward and very in terms of implementing or using it into our solution, very straightforward. This is how it bridges both the sides together. So event grid guiding principles, basically it's these were the various consideration taken when designing the event grid. Is like always available, near real-time event delivery, and at least once delivery. It's a dynamic scale, so pretty much it scales to millions of events per second, and it's platform agnostic. So we basically subscribe using a webhook, so it calls into any webhook and delivers that push notification. It's also language agnostic. Works based on the HTTP protocol, so we're not tied to a specific language. So this is how overall it fits in. Is basically it is a SLA backed 49 availability, and in terms of millions of events per second per region, it scales out to. And also it has this 24 hours of retry with the exponential back off mechanism to deliver the events. So let's discuss a few scenarios, how and in what type of cases that the event grid fits in. So first is serverless type of apps or event-driven solution architecture. That's where like something happened into a storage account, or a file or some kind of record has been created into a storage account. Now that storage account creation notification has been delivered to event grid, and then we are tying our Azure functions as a subscriber to that event. So we execute certain type of cognitive API or some type of our AI logic based on that file, and we want to analyze. So you can imagine there could be various different scenarios we could be executing depending on what type of events we are waiting for, and the moment that notification happens, we execute the logic. The second set of scenarios could be ops automation. So in the operations, for example, a new SQL database is created in Azure, and we might want to run a compliance check on that SQL database, that what kind of firewall rules or what IPs are allowed, how exactly the SQL database has been created, and what's the configuration. We want to run that compliance check script or kind of function logic on top of that event. The other scenario could be like, as I mentioned earlier, a VM is created, and then we want to execute our Azure automation script to tag that VM or to notify on our Microsoft Teams channel that okay, this specific VM was created, or we want to notify some other department or specific approvers. So this is where the scenarios they unlock, and many different possibilities open up if you want to tie up all this logic together and build the solution as a kind of automation scenarios. Also, in terms of third-party integrations, like let's say we have a connected car or vehicle performance matrix project, where the moment a car drive starts or drive ends, we push the message to Azure Event Hub. Event Hub pushes the notification to Event Grid, and we have various set of event handlers subscribe to that event. So we execute the logic depending on what happened, what event happened, and we drive the scenario from there. So the scenarios and the possibilities could be various depending on what kind of business goal or the requirements we have, and how in a very simplistic and an easier way we can achieve those scenarios. So there are various type of SDKs available on top of the Azure portal management. So for this event grid, in terms of management SDKs, publishing and consumption SDKs for the various languages in terms of .NET, Python, Node, Ruby, and Go languages. So certainly if you want to utilize event grid for, let's say we have a solution, we have a console application or some kind of on-premises application running, we want to push an event from our custom solution into event grid. We leverage the SDK, push the notifications to event grid, and then we might have various different webhooks listening to that event. And that's how the fan out approach works, where we deliver an event and there could be n number of subscribers to that one. So how does it work? All in all, this is how the event grid functionality looks like. And the scenario is like, events, basically what happened. event publisher is like where it took place, what happened where. So those event publishers, they publish the events to their specific topics. For example, Azure Storage Account or Azure Subscriptions or resource groups. So they send the events. Then event subscriptions, that's how, we subscribe that which all different event handlers are interested for that specific event. And then event handlers, they execute and they react based on what happened. So this is how the event looks like. It basically divided into two parts. The first is from where it is coming up. So in this example, it's a storage blob created event type. And the second portion is what exactly, are the details, what happened, what was the file, and all those specific details. So as I mentioned, in addition to various resources and the services we have in Azure, and there are many more other Azure services coming up. So they all will have the first party integration to push the events to Event Grid, and then we build the scenarios on top of that. In addition to that, we can publish our own events. So this is how it will work out. Is we can have our custom topics created. We create our custom topic from our application. We publish or push the notifications to that event using any of the SDK type. We push that notification, and then based on that, we can have various subscribers who are waiting for that specific event to happen. So this is how we can leverage this scenario for our custom solutions as well. So let me quickly switch to demo so that we all can understand how exactly this everything comes together. So in the Azure portal, if you go to Azure Event Grid subscriptions, this is where you can see a complete list of all subscriptions for various topic types. So for example, Azure subscriptions, resource group, storage accounts, and various others. Here the list will keep increasing as more and more Azure services are integrated into the event grid. And then based on the location, we can filter our subscription. If you want to create a new subscription, this is how the experience looks like. We select a topic, we give a name, and then for example, I want to subscribe to a storage account. I give name, I select a resource group from where I want to subscribe to a storage account. This is my storage account, and here is a option to subscribe to all event types, or I can select a specific event type, whether the blob created or deleted, and then I can provide my endpoint webhook here. So for this scenario, what I have done is I have built a small demonstration application. What I am going to do here is I'll create a blob into a storage account, and based on that, I have created Azure functions, which is listening, which is basically waiting for the notification. The moment Event Grid notifies function, listening is a wrong word. It's basically just waiting for the operation for the event to happen. So the moment Event Grid notifies function, it's going to execute the logic, and then it will we can execute whatever workflow that we want to integrate. So this is how I'm going to do here. This is my PowerShell script. All I'm doing here is I'm just going to create a small blob file into a storage account, and then rest of the workflow should continue. So this is a programmatic way using PowerShell. I have created Event Grid subscription where I provided my function endpoint URL here. So that's what is my webhook. So the moment event happens for blob creation, Event Grid will notify on this one. So I'm going to execute, let's say this sample PowerShell. Okay, so that has now created a file in Azure Blob Storage, and in the function, as we can see, we received the notification from event grid that this blob was created, this was the file, this is my topic, and that's where this is what happened. From this point onwards, the possibilities are limitless. We execute our logic based on what we want to do and what scenario we want to unlock. Same thing you can do for Azure Automation as well. So this is my Azure Automation runbook, so which is basically waiting for VM creation. So all it is going to do is tag the VM and then post a message in Microsoft Teams. So that's what it is going to do. Again, this automation runbook, it will give me a webhook. So that webhook, using that webhook, I can subscribe to VM creation event in Event Grid, and my scenario is in place. So it kind of makes it a lot faster and very quickly to integrate various scenarios and unlocks, different possibilities. So with that, I'll again switch back to my presentation. So that we have various Azure resources. You can check more details on Azure Event Grid on documentation page. There are so many different things and scenarios or the concepts you can get understanding from. For this our limited time, I think this will be very important information and the pointers to get you started. With that, we are pretty much done with the topic, and all in all, this is what we need to take away from Event Grid. It is a fully managed event routing platform, near real-time event delivery at scale, and it kind of has a broad coverage within Azure and beyond Azure.
Hey, great session. Thank you so much, Tejas. So there are a few questions in the chat window. Can you please respond to that?
Yep, surely. All right, so there is one. Could I forward 100% of event alerts from one Azure subscription into second Azure subscription? Yeah, basically it is at the event publisher and the subscriber mechanism. So your resources could be anywhere, as long as you just push your events to Event Grid, and then your event handler, you subscribe to those event types. That pretty much it actually. As we discussed, the webhooks could be anywhere. So that's how we subscribe to.
Yeah. So however, I don't think so that you will see the event publishers in Azure portal, right? If they are in different subscription, for that you'll have to use either PowerShell or some other way.
Yes. Okay. The possibilities are there. It's just that the UI may not have those things in the UI, but the platform is there.
Yeah.
So we just subscribe and set those publishers. Yeah.
So Michelle, did this answer your question? Michael, sorry.
Okay. All right. Let me